It happened on the brightest day of her life, and the darkest day of mine. The auditorium smelled of disinfectant and polished metal, the kind hospitals share with funeral homes. Families filled the seats in clusters, cheering and waving phones as white coats crossed the stage. I stayed in the back, bouquet in hand, fingers tight around the stems until the roses bent. 7 years of nights and ramen and overdue bills gathered in my throat, but I swallowed them. Today was hers. It was supposed to be ours. When they called her name, Dr. Emily Harper, the crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Her wealthy fiancé, Daniel, the surgical prodigy, wrapped an arm around her before she could even step off the stage. His family pushed forward with gift boxes and champagne ribbons. I stayed where I was. She knew I was there. I watched her glance in my direction, then look away like she'd just remembered a task she forgot but no longer cared about. After the ceremony, people gathered for photos. I tried to wait for a quiet moment, a clearing. There never was one. Daniel's mother adjusted Emily's hair. Daniel kissed her forehead. I finally stepped forward. Emily saw me first. Her smile tightened. "This is someone who helped me through med school," she said to the circle around her. Someone who helped. Not the woman who paid half her tuition. Not the woman who worked double shifts when she nearly dropped out. Not the woman who held her hand through panic attacks and exam nights and funerals and birthdays. Just someone. Daniel nodded politely, already turning back for the next photo. No one asked my name. I handed her the bouquet. The roses were wilted from my grip. She took them with fingertips like they were fragile or unclean. "Thank you," she murmured, soft enough that only I could hear. I left before she could see the shine in my eyes. The parking garage felt colder than outside. The concrete carried echoes of footsteps and distant sirens. I was unlocking my car when I heard her heels approach behind me. "Wait." I turned. Her graduation gown fluttered in the draft. She didn't bother pretending to be emotional. She looked efficient, like she was checking off a task. "I should say this now, before things get messy." My lungs froze. She played with the diamond on her finger, letting the ambulance lights from the ER entrance reflect against the stone. Her breath fogged in the night air. "I'm ending this. Us." I didn't speak. I didn't trust what would come out. "I need to move upward, and I can't drag dead weight." My jaw clenched so tight I nearly tasted blood. She studied me for a second, as if waiting for me to argue just so she could feel justified. When I didn't, she gave the last blow. "You were good, until you weren't enough." The bouquet slipped from her hands. Daniel's cologne still clung to her skin. I stared at the roses on the concrete, red petals against gray stone, bruised and crumpled under her heel when she stepped back. She walked away first. I stood there long after her footsteps faded, the cold blooming up through the cement, up my spine, settling, somewhere, permanently, inside me. I drove home from the hospital that night, with the siren of an ambulance trailing behind me like an accusation. 36 years old, trained to handle emergencies, and I still had no protocol for the kind of wound she left. Some breakages don't bleed, they just hollow you out. People think paramedics become numb. We don't. We just learn to swallow faster than most. My apartment was the same as always. Small, clean, quiet. Yet it looked different, like someone had turned down the saturation. I hung my uniform jacket on the hook, sat at the edge of the couch, and stared at the framed photo on the shelf. Her graduation portrait from college. I was in it too, standing beside her, my arm around her waist. Back then, she leaned into me. Back then, she needed me. I used to feel proud when I said I was the one paying the bills while she studied. Proud to make dinner after 14-hour shifts. Proud when I sold my motorcycle, the one thing I ever bought just for myself so she could afford a prep course. The dealer asked if I was sure. I remember laughing. "She'll save lives someday," I told him. "That's worth more than a bike." 7 years together. 7 years of believing love was something you built brick by brick. Turns out love can be repossessed if the bricks aren't expensive enough. Her parents never hid what they thought of me. They shook my hand like it was a compromise. Every holiday dinner felt like I was applying for a job I wasn't qualified for. I kept telling myself I'd prove them wrong, that one day they'd be proud their daughter chose someone solid, dependable, someone who showed up. But people like them don't care who shows up. They care who shines. When Emily met Daniel during her surgery rotation, I noticed the shift long before she admitted it. I saw how her voice changed around him, how she picked outfits with more precision, how she avoided talking about money, our money, because suddenly it embarrassed her. I told myself not to overthink. Lovers worry. Lovers get insecure. But sometimes insecurity isn't paranoia. Sometimes it's instinct. After the breakup, I drove to the one place that still felt real. My grandmother's house. She raised me when my parents disappeared into their vices, choosing addiction over responsibility. Her porch light was always left on, like a lighthouse for whenever I needed grounding. She was sitting in her armchair when I walked in, knitting on her lap, glasses halfway down her nose. She didn't ask why my eyes were red. She just patted the seat beside her. "Come here," she said. I sat, and the room smelled of lavender and old books. For a moment, I didn't have to pretend to be strong. I whispered. She left. My grandmother paused her knitting. "Because you weren't enough for her," she said calmly, not with cruelty, but with truth. It stunned me how precisely she understood without hearing the full story. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "I gave her everything." She agreed. "You did. So why wasn't it enough?" She rested her hand on mine, thin, warm, steady. "Because some people aren't looking to be loved. They're looking to be upgraded." I stared at the floor. "I feel stupid." "No," she said softly. "You feel used. That's different." The heater hummed, her clock ticked. The world was quiet enough to hear the ache in my chest. "Kindness isn't weakness," she told me, "unless you let them make it one." The sentence settled in my bones, heavier than grief, because she was right. I had confused sacrifice with security. I thought loyalty earned permanence. I thought devotion guaranteed a future. Grandma squeezed my hand once more before letting go. "You don't owe anybody your life. Save some of it for yourself." I stayed with her until midnight. Nothing miraculous happened. No revelations, no dramatic vows of reinvention. Just silence, tea, and the first breath in hours that didn't hurt. Still, something shifted quietly inside me. A small corner of myself, the part that believed love was always worth the cost, finally cracked. I didn't know it then, but cracks are where light gets in. Grandma's house was quieter without her. Not the peace she used to create, but a hollow silence that felt like something had been taken rather than completed. I came back to finish packing the last of her things, the legal deadline looming. The winter light through the curtains made everything look frozen in place. Her knitting chair, the half-finished scarf, the mug she used every morning. I tried to focus on boxes, tape, labels, practical things. Anything that didn't involve thinking about the hospital parking lot or the words still echoing under my ribs. I was kneeling beside her dresser when I found the sewing box tucked behind an old quilt, the one she hadn't touched in years. The lid squeaked when I opened it, like it resented being disturbed. Inside were the usual things: spools of thread, dull needles, a thimble, and one thing that didn't belong: a sealed envelope. My name on the front, written in her cursive handwriting, careful, looping, unmistakable. Below it, a line in shakier strokes: "Not to be opened,
until she leaves you. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My hand shook so badly the sewing box rattled. I sat back on the floor, envelope in my lap, pulse loud in my ears. She wrote this years ago. She knew this would happen. Or feared it, or expected it. I didn't know which one scared me more. I touched the flap of the envelope, then pulled my hand back like it burned. I wasn't ready. Whatever Grandma put inside, she believed it should only be read now, after the breaking, after the abandonment. The phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Emily. "We need to settle finances. I'll outline what you owe me." I stared at the screen, stunned. Owe her? For rent I paid, for groceries I bought, for the prep classes I covered, for the bills I shouldered when she failed an exam and spiraled. Another message came before I could react. "Don't make this messy." My thumb tightened around the phone until my knuckles whitened. I didn't reply. I didn't trust myself. I looked back at the envelope. My breath shook as I whispered into the empty room, half to Grandma, half to myself. "What did you know?" No answer, of course. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the smell of cedar from the closet she used to keep her blankets in. I almost opened it. My thumb slid under the edge of the flap. But something, maybe instinct, maybe fear, froze me. This wasn't something to tear through in the middle of dust and grief and rage. I set the envelope on my lap and folded both hands around it like it might slip away. Another text buzzed. "I need the money this month." My chest tightened. "Unbelievable," I whispered. I put the phone face down on the floor. When I looked around the room again, everything felt different, as if the house was watching me, waiting for what I'd do next. The envelope wasn't a decoration. It was deliberate. A message sent through time, a truth my grandmother believed I'd need one day. Hope and dread tangled inside me. Whatever that letter held, comfort, warning, instructions, it meant she saw me more clearly than I had seen myself. I slid the envelope into my jacket, right over my heart. I wasn't ready to open it, but I suddenly knew I wouldn't be running from answers anymore.
I opened the envelope at my kitchen table 3 days later. Not because I was ready, but because avoiding it started to feel like betrayal. The paper was thick, the ink slightly smudged. She must have written it over time, maybe through shaking hands. If you're reading this, then she has left you, and you are hurting. But you are not broken. Not yet. There are things you must know. There's a key in the storage locker, Unit 143, near the riverfront. The letter continued, giving an address and one line that stopped my breath entirely. What you gave was not forgotten. I sat there for a long time, staring at the words, then folded the letter with more care than I'd shown anything in weeks. The storage facility was 20 minutes away. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt. Unit 143 was dusty, untouched for years. A single metal box sat in the center, not big, but solid enough to matter. Inside were folders labeled in Grandma's handwriting. Rent, tuition, prep courses, travel, living costs, receipts, bank statements, wire transfers, notes from nights I barely remembered, like extra shift to cover anatomy lab fee, February 2019. Every sacrifice I thought disappeared into the fog of the past, documented, itemized, preserved. I laughed once, a short broken sound, not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable how hard she worked to protect me after she was gone. At the bottom of the box was another note. Talk to the people who remember. They will guide you. Below that were 3 names and phone numbers. The first belonged to Elaine, a friend of Grandma's from the nursing home she volunteered at.
When she opened the door, her eyes softened immediately. "You look just like her," she said, pulling me into a gentle hug before I could respond. We sat in her living room, sunlight bouncing off family photos. I told her about the envelope, the box, the breakup. Not in full detail, but enough. She shook her head slowly. "Your grandmother knew. She didn't want to interfere. She wanted you to learn love on your own terms. But she knew if everything collapsed, you'd need proof you weren't the user. You were the giver." My throat tightened. "She planned this for years?" Elaine nodded. "She used to say, 'People forget kindness when it's convenient, so someone has to remember for him.'" I looked down at my hands. I don't know whether to feel grateful or ashamed. "Feel loved," she said. "She built this for when love failed you." The second number led me to a small law office in town. The lawyer, Robert Glenn, recognized my grandmother's name immediately. "She was, a hurricane disguised as a librarian," he said with a small smile. Then he pulled a folder from his drawer. "She left this to be released when you contacted me." Inside was a legal ledger, detailed, precise. He looked at me seriously. "Do you understand what this means?" "I think so." "You financed her education. Not legally, emotionally, domestically, financially. You gave labor and income that enabled her degree. If she's claiming you owe her, it's not only false, it's potentially fraud." That hit harder than I expected. I don't want to destroy her. "Maybe not, but she's already trying to destroy you." I looked up sharply. He didn't soften the next words. "She's not just walking away. She's rewriting history." Outside, I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could drive. The truth didn't feel like victory. It felt like grief with sharp edges. The final contact was the one I dreaded the most. Dr. Wilcox, a retired professor from Emily's first-year program. I remembered him vaguely, old-fashioned, strict, but fair. I emailed him, expecting to be ignored. Instead, he replied within an hour. "Come by. I remember you." I drove to his house, nerves twisting. When he opened the door, he studied me for a moment before nodding. It shook him. I wondered when this day would come. We walked inside. His office was lined with shelves and framed diplomas. He gestured to a chair. "You were always there at her evaluations, waiting outside with that lunchbox, holding her notes, bringing her coffee. It wasn't subtle." I exhaled slowly. Did it look pathetic? No. It looked like love, real love. And real love is rare. We talked for nearly an hour. He remembered moments I barely did. When I encouraged her after she failed her first surgical lab. When I arranged transportation for her clinical rotation because her car broke down. When I skipped job interviews to support her through finals. Then he opened a filing drawer and handed me copies of scholarship recommendation letters he wrote. Letters that credited her success not only to her talent, but to the support system she had at home. "You carried half the weight. She just didn't want the world to see you were strong enough to do it." I swallowed hard. I still love her. "That's normal," he said. "But love is not ownership, and love without respect corrodes the one who gives." His words hit something raw. I rubbed my face. I hate her, too. "That's normal as well." He walked me to the door. Before I left, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "When the truth surfaces, and it will, don't let it make you bitter. You're a good man. Don't let her decision make you small." That night, I spread everything across my living room floor. Receipts, bank logs, legal notes, scholarship letters, snapshots of 7 years of effort I had convinced myself didn't count. But it counted. It counted so much, my grandmother built a fortress of proof around it. I loved Emily. I hated Emily. I missed her. I resented her. I wanted her back. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Grief for my grandmother sat on my chest like a weight, but beneath it, something else stirred. Dignity. For the first time, I wasn't sure which would win, heartbreak or anger. I only knew one thing. The story wasn't finished yet. I didn't open the second envelope from the storage box until after midnight. The house was dark, the only light coming from the table lamp beside me. Maybe I needed the quiet. Maybe I needed the darkness to make courage easier. Grandma's handwriting filled the front. For when you are ready, and when the truth will hurt less than the lie. My hands trembled as I slid the letter out. The first sentence punched straight through me. I'm sorry I couldn't stay long enough to walk you through this myself. I stopped breathing. She had known. She had prepared. Every step I was taking, she planned while she was still alive. I kept reading. You gave more than love. You gave your future to build hers. I could not let that be rewritten. The next line gave me chills. I hired an attorney 3 years ago, the day I first saw her flinch when you introduced yourself as her partner. The memory hit me immediately. A dinner after one of Emily's rotations. She had laughed with her colleagues while I waited to be included. Later, I asked if I should introduce myself differently. She flinched. I told myself I imagined it. Grandma didn't. Inside the envelope were 3 tabs: legal, video, financial, each thicker than the last. I opened the legal one first. A scanned promissory agreement. Emily's signature right next to mine. I remembered signing paperwork for financial aid. I didn't realize one of them was this. It stated in exact language that my support for her education was a non-refundable personal investment, not a loan to be repaid, not a debt on my part. I whispered, "My God." The agreement continued. In the event of separation, neither party may claim financial reimbursement or damages from the other. She had already violated that line with every message she sent. A wave of betrayal hit me so hard I leaned back in the chair. My heart thudded wildly. She knew. She signed this. And now? She wanted me to pay her? I opened the video folder next. There were 3 files, each time-stamped over the years. I clicked the first one. Emily sat on Grandma's couch, younger, tired, honest-eyed in a way she hadn't been for a long time. "I promise," she said on camera, "when I graduate, we'll get married. I wouldn't be here without him." The second video, 2 years later, her voice shaky after a failed exam. "He believes in me more than I do. I don't deserve him, but I'm going to spend my life proving him right." The third video, the hardest to watch, a month before she started her surgical rotation. "I know what love costs, and I'll pay it back in loyalty for the rest of my life. I swear it." Promises are currency until ambition offers a better rate. I clicked stop. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat perfectly still, feeling every door in my heart closing one by one. The last folder, financial, held the final blow. A summary page. Total tuition and medical expenses covered by narrator, 87%. There was a breakdown underneath. Rent, bills, lab fees, commuting costs, prep courses, licensing exams, every late payment I covered, every extra shift I worked, every time I told myself it didn't matter who paid for what, because love was shared. Grandma made sure it mattered. There was another page at the bottom, one that made my stomach twist. Medical records. My grandmother didn't die suddenly. She didn't decline fast like we all believed. She'd been battling cancer quietly for years. Then her voice came back through the letter. I didn't spend my strength fighting death. I spent it protecting you. I pressed my fingers to my eyes, but the tears came anyway. Angry tears, grateful tears, tears that felt like they'd been stored inside since the day I sold my motorcycle and called it love. The letter continued. You didn't have to hate her. Love is not weakness, but letting someone steal your dignity is. I swallowed hard. There will come a day when she tries to rewrite the story, not because she loves you, but because pride fears the truth. When that day comes, remember, you do not need revenge. You only need the truth. My breath shook as I read the final lines. You were never dead weight. You were the foundation. You were not abandoned because you were small. You were abandoned because you were strong enough to build someone else. Dignity is not given. It is reclaimed. I set the letter down slowly. No part of this felt triumphant. This wasn't justice, not yet. It was recognition, the kind that breaks and repairs at the same time. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting every memory I had of Emily replay. Every celebration, every doubt, every kiss, every silence. I loved her. I hated her. And for the first time, I truly saw her. My phone buzzed on the table. Another message from Emily. I'll give you one more week before I take legal action. For the first time since the breakup, my hands didn't shake. I looked at the envelope, the folders, the videos, the truth. The story wasn't in her hands anymore. It was in mine.
I wasn't invited to the engagement dinner, of course. The only reason I knew about it was because one of her old classmates posted a story online. Luxury ballroom, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing under gold lights. Celebrating future surgeon royalty, the caption read. I sat in my truck across from the hotel for 10 minutes, breathing slow. Not angry, not shaking, just steady. Grandma's folder sat in the passenger seat. The weight of it wasn't paper, it was truth. When I walked through the lobby, no one stopped me. People smiled because I was dressed well. Suit, tie, polished shoes. It's remarkable how respect is often confused for money. The ballroom doors were open. Laughter and violins spilled out. I saw her instantly. Emily, radiant in a white engagement gown, diamonds shimmering under the chandeliers. Daniel stood beside her, hand at her waist. Her parents smiled like royalty greeting subjects. I walked toward them. Silence followed like a slow wave. Someone whispered my name. Emily's face drained of color. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I stopped at the edge of their circle. "Returning something that belongs to you." Daniel frowned. "Who is this?" Emily swallowed. "Just someone from before." I held her eyes. 7 years isn't before. It's a lifetime you stood on. The parents exchanged horrified looks. Daniel turned fully to her. 7 years? She ignored him. "You need to leave, now." "I will," I said.
after I give you your history back. I set the folder on the table. Conversations around us died. Even the quartet seemed quieter. Emily didn't touch it. I don't know what you think this is. It's the record of your medical degree, I said evenly. 87% funded by me. Her mother's voice cut in sharply. That is absurd. Daniel opened the folder. He read 1 page, then 2, then 3. His expression changed, not angry, not shocked, betrayed. What is this? He whispered. Emily reached for his arm. Don't. It's being twisted. He pulled away before she made contact. He turned the promissory agreement so her parents could see. You signed this. Her father grabbed it, scanning quickly. Is this real? It's her signature and mine. Her mother's voice shook with outrage. Why do you have this? How dare you keep something like... My grandmother kept it because she knew this day would come. Emily's voice cracked. I never asked her to do that. She didn't protect you. She protected me. Daniel flipped to the next file, the video recordings. He pressed play with trembling hands. Emily froze as her past self filled the room. I promise, when I graduate, we'll get married. I wouldn't be here without him. Gasps rippled across the table. Emily stepped forward, frantic. Turn that off! No one moved. The second video played. He believes in me more than I do. I'm going to spend my life proving him right. Emily grabbed the tablet and slammed it down, too late. Daniel was staring at her like she'd become a stranger. Is this who you are? He asked. Her voice broke. People change. I shook my head softly. No, they just get better at pretending. Her father rounded on me. And what do you want? Money? Revenge? I met his glare without blinking. Dignity. Her mother scoffed. You're pathetic. I turned to Emily. You didn't outgrow me. You used me. And this time you don't get to walk away clean. Emily's voice cracked into something desperate. We were kids. We were struggling. Things were different then. Struggling doesn't erase promises, I said quietly. Ambition doesn't erase history. Her father raised his voice. You're causing a scene. I stepped aside just as another figure approached. Robert Glenn, my grandmother's lawyer, dressed in black, calm and precise. Dr. Harper, you've been served. He placed the legal notice in front of her. Demand for repayment of the full documented financial support plus damages for false debt claims. Her mother sputtered. This is extortion. No, this is accountability. Her father grabbed the paper. You can't prove any of this. Robert pointed to the folder. We already have. Emily backed away from the table, breathing fast. You're ruining everything. No, I'm refusing to let you rewrite it. Daniel spoke finally, voice low and cutting. Did you ever love him at all? She didn't answer. That silence was the most honest thing in the room. He took off his engagement ring and placed it on the table. I won't marry someone who builds their life out of other people's bones. Her mother gasped. Her father cursed. Cameras came out. Guests murmured. Emily turned to me, tears filling her eyes. Not soft tears, not apologetic ones. Tears of a cornered ego. You think this makes you noble? Dragging me down? Making a spectacle? I'm not dragging you down. I'm just stepping out of the hole you put me in. I picked up the folder, leaving the served papers behind. Then I said the only sentence that mattered. This ends tonight. I turned and walked away. Not fast, not triumphant, steady. Behind me, voices broke into chaos. Her mother demanding lawyers, her father shouting about reputation, guests murmuring, Daniel telling someone to drive him home, Emily crying without sound. Not one person called me out. In the hallway, the faint echo of the quartet continued. the musicians playing because they hadn't been told to stop. Outside, the cold night air hit my lungs like clarity. I didn't win. I reclaimed. And that was enough.
The settlement didn't feel like justice. It felt like closure, the kind that doesn't celebrate, only exhales. After attorney fees and debts, I still had enough left to do something I hadn't dared in a long time. Invest in myself. I enrolled in a paramedic to nursing bridge program. Not for someone else's dreams this time, for mine. Evening classes, textbooks, long nights at the desk. It was exhausting in a familiar way, but now every hour felt like building my future, not someone else's. I also started volunteering at the community clinic my grandmother used to donate to. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and cheap coffee. Kids played with worn toys, exhausted parents filled out forms. It wasn't glamorous. It was human. One night, I stitched up a teenager's hand after a work accident. He couldn't afford urgent care. When we finished, he whispered, "Thanks, man. I thought I was screwed." After he left, the clinic director, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a hopeful smile, leaned on the doorframe. "You're good with people," she said. I shrugged. "Comes with the job." "No," she said. "Plenty of medical staff know procedures. You see people." I fiddled with the glove box. My grandmother used to volunteer here. Felt right to show up too. The director nodded slowly. "Some people save lives with money, some with heart. We need both." I wasn't sure what to say, so I just nodded. She didn't push. She went back to her paperwork. It was the kindest silence I'd heard in months. After shifts, I sometimes joined the other volunteers for late coffee. They talked about school stress, rent, patients, favorite shows, real life. Nothing about status or reputation. One of the nurses in training laughed at my jokes too easily. Another made a habit of saving me a seat. Maybe one of them liked me. Maybe I liked someone back. But I didn't chase it. Healing isn't a race. Some nights I still missed Emily. Other nights I didn't. Both were okay. I kept moving. Class, clinic, sleep, repeat. And somewhere in the routine, the hole in my chest stopped echoing. I wasn't rebuilt by revenge. I was rebuilt by direction. The night before my first nursing exam, I sat at my desk, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the heater. The new textbook lay open, pages unmarked, future untouched. I reached into the drawer and took out Grandma's handkerchief, the one she used to embroider during long evenings on the porch. Soft fabric, slightly faded, initials stitched in blue thread. I placed it inside the book, right at the chapter I still feared most. My hand lingered on the letters. "Still here," I whispered, barely a breath. Outside the window, headlights swept across the glass, red and white, flashing like distant ambulance sirens. Once, that light meant survival for someone else. Tonight, it meant momentum for me. I closed the textbook gently, palms resting on the cover. No fear, no bitterness, just breath. Her strength beneath my hand, my future in front of me.